Hey everybody, welcome to 9394, a music podcast where we look at typically albums released from 1993 to 1994, obviously. Been doing this show for a couple years now and have established a pretty good roster of folks who return to the show, for which I'm very grateful. But I'm also always glad to get a new guest on. And today I have a new guest named Greg Lazzaro. As we explained in our conversation, it's actually take two for us doing this, but still, first time you're going to hear him on my show. And I'm extremely grateful he came on to talk about a pop icon, Madonna, and her 1994 album, Bedtime Stories. Check out our conversation.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hello, Greg.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, buddy. How you doing?
Good. We may be interrupted by a Frenchie, so she is... Let me see if I can... Hold on. Let me turn the thing around so you can see.
Oh, look at her.
She's sunbathing. I'm not happy that I'm not paying any attention to her. But we just took a walk, so hopefully she'll, let me sit for a little while.
No, I totally understand. I've got both my dogs with me, my Chiweenie and my Yorkie mix, and luckily they're very well trained with podcasting. They're used to it, but they've gotten so where they literally know when I'm done with the podcast. So the second I say that I'm done, they can tell the tone. They're immediately like, "All right, we're done. We can finally get out of this room and go do other things and get attention."
They're like, "About time, buddy. It's about time." Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I know. I do so much. I never pet you. You're so neglected.
I know, right? He's talking about you. She's staring at me. Anyway. I was watching my bonus features on my Goonies. About once a year, I gotta watch the Goonies. Need a Goonies fix, and
sure.
So that was this week. I needed to feel positivity and mentally well, so I put in the Goonies, and
I get it.
Then I was happy.
That's what I started doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started buying the stuff like my happy movies. It started actually with a DVD because do you know the movie One Fine Day with George Clooney and Michelle Pfeiffer from 96 or so? I was burning to watch that movie forever, but it wasn't streaming anywhere or anything. So finally I'm like, I guess I'm just going to have to buy it because I want to watch it. And I couldn't even find it on Blu-ray, so I ended up buying it on DVD. But that was 6 months ago. I've watched it 4 times in the past 6 months because it's just one of those feel-good movies. It's just a sweet little movie. And I'm like, oh man, I should just start buying everything like that. That's the stuff that I want, regardless of where it's streaming. So that's my new thing, my new collection.
Yeah, and I'm hearing now that I'm laughing out loud saying it because it just seems so silly, but CDs are apparently coming back with Gen Z. They're like, oh, this is cool. There's a booklet we can read.
Right.
With the lyrics.
Right. Artwork and everything.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, well, thankfully I have about, 1,500 CDs or more. So I'm good to go.
I got rid of so many of mine, but I started driving a car a few months ago that's a 2015 Jeep and it has a CD player in it. And I'm like, well, shit. Yeah, so I've broken out all my CDs and I've been listening to all kinds of stuff that I hadn't listened to in a while, like old Tracy Chapman and stuff, CDs that stuff that, you know what I mean? Because when you got Spotify, it's you kind of get locked into the stuff that comes to your mind right away, as opposed to looking through a collection and be like, oh, I haven't listened to this album in a while. I haven't listened to this in a while, So I've been kind of digging my CDs.
Yeah, also, and this is sort of something that is very something of the past,
Mm.
which makes us relics.
Yeah, well,
We used to listen to when you bought like certainly when you bought a tape because you had to rewind and fast forward, but like albums or like you would listen to the entire album. If you bought it, you would listen to it from start to finish. Whereas now you stream, you pick song by song, almost like we used to listen to a single, but people don't listen to full albums as much anymore, which means that if an artist puts out a piece of work, which is meant to be a whole, it's like the same concept if you bought a painting and you just cut out the corner and said, this is the only part of the painting that I'm going to look at today. Or if a book, if you said, I'm only going to read half of this page, that's the only part I'm interested in reading today. An album comes out, and rather than listening to the whole thing, which we used to do, you only listen to one song, which means if the whole album tells a story, you're only getting this little sliver of it.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, this is, it's a huge problem.
It means that music is a disposable art form, which it is not, but it feels that way.
That's a great point. It's become more consumable, more easily bite-sized and like packaged. And that just doesn't work for me. It never has. I've never been, I mean, I like the occasional compilation album or whatever, like or put like a mix of like, you know, classic songs on or whatever. I'll do that every now and then. But for the most part in my life, I listen to full albums. Like that's how I've always been for that reason, because it's like, I need to get the full breadth of what the artist is going for, you know?
Which was something that was very much a part of music in the 90s, which we're talking about today and earlier, but the idea of an album as a piece of art that tells a story from start to finish. And that is just how music was consumed. Because actually, well, what are we talking about today? 94. CDs were just becoming more common in people's homes at that point. I mean, really, 92, 93, 94, cassettes were finally phasing out as CDs were coming in, but there was still that
transition
mix.
period.
Yeah,
for sure. And which album are we here to talk about today, Greg?
Today we're talking about Madonna's 1994 album, Bedtime Stories.
Bedtime Stories. I am excited to get into this with you. I have never listened to a full Madonna album from beginning to end until the last few weeks getting ready for this episode, and I've enjoyed the experience, I gotta say.
I'm glad to hear that, and I will, I want to touch on that, but do we want to do any kind of like short introduction about how we know each other since we don't have
let's do that right now. So I always start the show asking new guests how we know one another. You've actually been on here before. We did record an episode that didn't quite work out. So how do we know each other, Greg?
So we met in Philadelphia. We were both living in Philly at the time. Neither of us live in Philly any longer, but we were living in Philly. And I'm a music therapist, and I was the program manager for an adult day center in North Philly. And you were working as, tell me if I'm getting any of this wrong, you were an adjunct professor for Temple. Mm-hmm. And my role was to sort of like bring in people to lead groups with some of the seniors that attended the day center. And I brought you in to do like lectures and stuff.
Yeah, it ended up being my third job at the time, and it didn't pay great, but I fucking loved doing it because the group of people I got to spend with, these North Philadelphia citizens in their late 70s to like early 90s.
Yes.
I would go in there and I would prep a lecture like the night before, like making breakfast or on the bus ride over, and just really like get an hour's worth of lecture ready about whatever they wanted to talk about. It'd be like gospel music or the history of Stevie Wonder or like the history of Muhammad Ali, like anything that they would ask me. They'd like prep me like, hey, can you do a lecture on so and so? I'd be like, all right. I come in with that. So I ended up learning a ton in the research that I did for them. And then of course I'm hanging out with like 12 really interesting storied people that had a lot to teach me, and man, I loved every one of them. They were just a great crew of people to work with.
Yeah, each person had such a rich history and such a life, right? And so much lived experience. And, I always say, I think about that period in my life very often. Now I work in an inpatient forensic psych hospital, but I often talk about whenever I have an intern or something, I talk about that period of time and how much, yes, like our role there was to sort of like share knowledge and all of this stuff with these participants of this program, but I feel like I learned more from them. I got more from them because they just taught me so much about so many things, and I value all that and I cherish all of that, and I'm so grateful that I had that opportunity with all of those participants.
Me too. It's almost cliche to say something like that because I'm a teacher, so like I say things like that. I learn from my students, and it almost sounds like trite, but it's so true.
It's so true.
And as a teacher, I've spent a lot of time, spending time with kids and learning from kids and stuff like that. So it was really, really nice, and I'd like to do it again. to spend time with senior citizens and people that know all kinds of shit that, I can't even begin to wrap my head around, since I just wasn't in that era.
Yeah.
And it was also fun getting to so some of them I connected with right away, and some of them I really had to kind of work to break down barriers and get to know them, and then they end up being some of my favorite people. But then of course also you, it was a delight working with you. And yeah, I quit literally a month or two before COVID.
Yeah.
Just because I got a fourth job and I just couldn't do that many jobs at once. And then COVID happened, and I ended up being kind of glad, because I was afraid that I'm glad I didn't bring anything in, you know what I mean? Because I was really,
oh yeah,
I worked at Temple University. I was getting every disease all the time. I was on the subway, so I was like a petri dish everywhere I went. So I was like, okay, but I've often wondered about that place. I hope everyone came out okay. It was a really special place, and I agree, it was a special time in my life too.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah.
So we're getting into Madonna. I'm excited. She is an iconic person, and this is not necessarily the go-to album for her, at least in my knowledge. So I think it's really cool to jump in here, because I think it's, speaking of transitionary periods, as we were talking about with CDs and cassettes, I feel like this was a transitionary period in her career where she was kind of doing an about face, and well,
no, you're right.
The great ones always reimagine themselves, right? Bowie and everybody, all the great ones, they gotta recreate themselves from album to album in a way. And she's doing that here.
But this was a unique time. It was a unique time for Madonna, but it was a unique time in music in general. Let me preface by saying it cannot be stated enough how influential and important Madonna as a voice in popular culture was on my coming to terms with my sexuality and sorry, I'm staring at my Frenchie right now who's licking the floor. Hey, how much so I was born in the late 70s, and growing up, once AIDS kind of came into the picture, people didn't talk about homosexuality. It was not a good thing to be gay. People were not positive about homosexuality through the 80s and 90s, really. Not a lot of artists went to bat for gay people, not a lot of musical artists.
Especially big ones.
Big ones, yeah. Certainly not a lot of big artists. I mean, there were artists that did talk about it. But Madonna, not only did she talk about it and raise money for AIDS and paid for healthcare for her friends who were dying of AIDS, paid for their hospital stays and raised all money and did AIDS dance-a-thons and concerts. All the proceeds would go to AIDS charities and benefits and things. She also celebrated gay culture in a way that she had a movie in 1990. In 1990, she did a tour called Blonde Ambition, and she did a documentary called Truth or Dare.
Who could forget?
Right? And Truth or Dare celebrated homosexuality. In fact, because Madonna in her personality is sort of defiant and I'm going to say what I want to say and you're going to listen to me, she kind of put homosexuality out there in the same way. This is real life. This exists in real life. And I'm going to show it to you. You don't have to like it, but here it is. And for a little gay boy, seeing that through the 80s and into the 90s, as I became a teenager and everything, it cannot be understated how important that was. To see a positive and defiant view of homosexuality and saying, not only is it cool to be this, but I'm going to be this whether you like it or not. That was important. Because teenagers are like that anyway. They're like, this is me, and I'm going to do this whether you like it or not. But to have someone attach that to homosexuality, a big star, was huge.
I'm sure it probably let you know that however much in the high school that you were in and shit, however much amongst the guys that you knew that you interacted with, however much it wasn't okay in those spaces, she let you know that there are spaces where it's more than okay, it's embraced and accepted and celebrated.
Right.
Which is important.
Right.
And she's always been someone that really drives the conversation forward about sex throughout the latter half of the 20th century. She's just unabashedly sex, sexuality, everything. She is someone that, whether you're comfortable with it or not, she's going to put that conversation on the table for our society, which is great.
Right. She did an interview in, I think it was 91 with Dateline or something, and talked about this, the idea that people in our, for decades, people are fine watching violence on TV, but two men kissing is considered abhorrent to so many people. And she's like, but you'd watch somebody be blown up, but to see two people showing love to each other and affection, that's bad. She puts things out there, not just about homosexuality, just in general. And then tying back into kind of what we were talking about a little earlier with the music of the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
I remember a distinct feeling when 1989 turned into 1990 that something had changed in the popular culture when it came specifically to music, that suddenly everything that was 80s was passe and 90s was like a new way forward. And you saw it in so many ways, like hair metal. Like I loved Guns N' Roses and all of these like 80s, even though Use Your Illusion was like a 92 album, I think, or 91. I forget.
I think it was 91, but I get what you're saying. Like as soon as like Nevermind and 10 came out, like everything like you're right. And then at the same time we had like a big influx of hip hop and R&B music was like so between the alternative and grunge stuff and then like the hip hop R&B stuff, there was a whole new vibe for the early 90s in terms of what was popular on the radio.
Yeah. And you were to sort of like, in order to be cool, you had to only look forward and not look back. 80s were over, 90s were new. And strangely, I didn't see the turn of the other decades since then. 2000, 2010, 2020. I didn't see that big of a shift. Maybe it's because of that I was an adolescent at the time and it felt so important. Maybe it feels that way to adolescents now if they're going through it, but it felt different. Well, I don't know, because like, I'm trying to think, like Taylor Swift, when 2020 came around, it wasn't like she was suddenly uncool because she had been in the previous decade famous and successful. She was still cool and everyone just sort of followed her. The same thing with Lady Gaga or any of these. Beyonce's a good example. She was in Destiny's Child in the late 90s, and then we've seen the decade into 2000s, 2010s, 2020s. Beyonce's still famous. People aren't like first to like her.
Yeah, but we've also seen reinventions of those people, right? Like she's got that country album, for instance, and Taylor Swift started working with the National, and like her music really became a lot deeper. Like it's still pop, but still a lot more substance to it. They've reinvented themselves the same way that Madonna did in the early '90s. Because if she had kept doing the Papa Don't Preach kind of stuff, which is cool, but if she had stayed with that level of kind of superficial pop, we wouldn't be talking about her today.
True. So what happened was, in 91, the documentary Truth or Dare came out. And then in 92, I'm just going to lead up to Bedtime Stories so we can, because it's important. So in 92, Madonna put out her book, Sex. This was in October of 92. She put out a coffee table book called Sex, which had nude photos. It was more like have you ever seen it?
I've never sat down and read it. Like I've seen it, like, but I've never sat down and flipped through it.
It's not like a book of pornography photos.
It's like art,
a book of,
right?
Like art photos. Yeah, nude photos, but
erotic.
It's not erotic photos. Yeah, it's not. So I think there was this misconception that it was like a porn magazine, but that was not what it was. It was more
porn magazines don't come with hard covers, and they're not like over a foot tall.
Exactly. It was very much curated. It was very much an art book, like a coffee table. But it came out at the same time as the album right before the one we're going to talk about today in 92, which was called Erotica. Then a few months after that, early 93, a movie called Body of Evidence with Willem Dafoe. And then in 93, she did a tour called The Girly Show. So all those things together were very heightened sexuality.
Yeah.
There was a big backlash toward Madonna. Now, that could be for any number of reasons. It could have been because there was the change of musical styles and stuff. But I think it was more just that she was like flooding the market. And then it was so much sex. People were like...
This is also like the Tipper Gore era. This is the beginnings of the modern far-right movement beginning to seize power culturally in this country. People were very vocally outspoken against anything that pushed against our norms.
Yeah.
And Madonna set herself up as a lightning rod for this kind of conversation, which I can understand wanting to kind of adjust a little bit after that musically. And I don't think that this album that we're here to talk about, Bedtime Stories, is a sexless album. There's still a lot of eroticism and sexual subtext and sexual defiance.
Right.
But it's more nuanced. It's not as in your face and in almost like sticking your tongue out kind of way. This is more adult, I think.
Yeah, and I think too what makes the album different than Erotica is Erotica is a great album and it has like a lot of really good stuff on it. But Erotica has a very cool, cold sort of feel to it, whereas Bedtime Stories is very warm and like lush. I think that Madonna was taken aback. I think that she felt that because up to that point, people were so comfortable and accepting of this sexual sort of things that she was doing up through Blonde Ambition and Truth or Dare and Justify My Love and all these things. I think she miscalculated that people would suddenly like how much that sort of Tipper Gore parents, what was it called?
Oh
The
yeah.
dirty dozen or something, like all these other, like whatever the parental advisory stickers were
Yeah. Moms against music that has
yeah.
any sort of context.
Right. Exactly. So I think she thought like, oh, well, people have embraced it up to now, or if they've been prickly about it, people have still bought it.
Mhm.
So they turned on her. And in fact, in 93, I remember being in and I loved Erotica. I still love Erotica. It's one of my favorite Madonna albums. But in 1993, I was in Walden Books, and there's a real book that was out on the bookshelves called the I Hate Madonna Handbook. And it was all about hating Madonna, and like that is how much the like hate and vitriol toward Madonna was at the time. Like people were like, she's over, right?
And it makes me think of the cottage industry, the anti-Hillary Rodham Clinton shit
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
happening at the same time, like a whole movement to tear down any woman who was outspoken in our culture, pretty much.
It was really a weird time. And I remember being I was in 8th grade, and I had my Walkman. I was listening to the Erotica cassette. And somebody asked me, one of the boys in the school turned around, other 8th grade boys turned around and said to me, "What are you listening to?" And I had to kind of like sheepishly, almost embarrassed, in a moment, an embarrassed way, say Madonna.
Yeah.
Of course, that's so silly and so stupid, but at the time, that's kind of the way it felt. Like I was probably supposed to say, I don't know what I was supposed to say I was listening to. I mean, Nevermind. I mean, I listened to Nevermind too, or Boyz II Men or whatever, but I was not supposed to say Madonna.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then in 93, she finished the Girly Show tour, which was a mammoth tour all over the world, but only a couple dates in the United States. And then in March of 94, she put out a song called I'll Remember from a soundtrack. And it was very like adult contemporary.
With Honors was the movie, right?
With Honors, with the sound, and it was very adult contemporary. It was produced by an artist named William Orbit, who coincidentally later produced her album Ray of Light, which was far down the line and a huge success. But
Yeah.
William Orbit, or maybe he just did a remix of it, I forget, but he was involved in I'll Remember. Yeah, that's right. It was a remix of I'll Remember. But she put out I'll Remember. It was very adult contemporary, and people had this idea that, oh, Madonna's like this new version of herself. She's not doing the sex stuff, the erotica stuff, all that.
Yeah.
So her album is going to be more like this. But then, a few weeks after the single came out, she went on David Letterman. And I don't know how to describe the experience on David, it was a performance, but she said fuck 20 times on the David Letterman show. And she really took him to task because he had made it a point for a while of like every single episode sort of trashing her and like making fun of her sex life.
I'm not surprised. When she was dating Warren Beatty and all that kind of stuff, that was all very much fodder for the late night talk shows and tabloids and all that stuff. Yeah. People ate it up.
It was that same period of time where Princess Diana was on the cover of every tabloid. I mean, everybody was obsessed with celebrities, and I mean, they still are, but like Madonna was one of the people fixated.
Yeah.
So she really took David Letterman to task, and it was like, then people were like, oh, Madonna's a bitch. She's a whore. She's terrible. She's the same old Madonna. But still, I'll Remember did really well. She didn't go on and like sing I'll Remember and be really like demure. I mean, this was still Madonna, very defined. Then was it September or October? Hold on, I've got my book here. This is true. I've got my Encyclopedia Madonnica.
Oh my God, that's big.
Yes.
Encyclopedia Madonnica. Wow.
By the amazing Matthew Rettenman, who's amazing. This is the probably 4th edition of this book. And on October 25th, 1994, Bedtime Stories came out. And the first single was a song called Secret. Just before it came out, Madonna was invited to the MTV Video Music Awards, and David Letterman escorted her out on stage. Oh. And he basically said something, it was so cute. He said something like, I'll see you later, watch your language, and gave her a kiss on the cheek and walked out. And so they had made up.
Yeah.
Because, it wasn't like it was a real fight. I mean, he knew it was a performance or whatever. But, sure. And then that's where the album's campaign started. So now we're up to Bedtime Stories, and that's what we're talking about today.
Well, let's get into the main point then that I'm always curious about, especially when it's one of someone's favorite albums. What's your favorite song on this album, Greg?
Knowing that question comes up in every episode, I thought a lot about it. And I think it's a hard question to answer because there is such a variety on this album and every song does something different. Right. So I will answer that this way. I think, and we can get into why, I think the most important song on this album, but not my favorite, the most important song on this album is Human Nature.
Okay, let's start there.
Okay.
Human Nature is a song that when it first started for me, I was like, this is going to be one that doesn't grab me. Like, this just isn't my genre, you know? But lyrically, the content of it, I can 100% see why you're saying it's the most important song on the album, because this is such a thumb in the eye of all of those critics.
Yeah.
I kind of took it to mean like, is she talking about Warren Beatty? Because he sure came off like a stuffy asshole.
He did.
After their breakup. So she could be talking about a specific person, or she could be talking about like society.
Yeah.
Oops, did I say something about sex? Didn't know that was a problem. I must be fucking crazy if you're talking about sex. But the whole thing, it's a badass song.
It's a badass song, and I think it is clapping back at her critics who said, you've gone too far, you're over. People that wrote the I Hate Madonna handbook. In fact, in the video, which is amazing, at the very end of the video, the song cuts out and she just looks at the camera and says, absolutely no regrets. So that people are clear that she's like not apologizing. And she says in the song, I'm not apologizing.
Oh, over and over again.
Over and over again. I'm not sorry. Yeah. So I think it's the most important song on the album for a lot of reasons. I think she knew that people were going to say, oh, Madonna softened her image, which she did. Madonna is doing something totally different than she did her last album, which she did, but she does anyway on all of her albums.
Sure.
But I think people didn't expect her to also say fuck you to the people that like were coming down hard on her from the last album and the last phase of her career. And it is that same defiance I was talking about earlier. It is a Madonna defiance. And interestingly, because of that defiance and the defiant nature of the song, it didn't do real well as a single when it came out. But in very defiant Madonna fashion, she continues to perform the song on almost every tour since.
That's cool.
It has become a staple, and almost like she's like, you all might not have bought this song, but I've decided it's one of my greatest hits, and I'm going to play the fuck out of it, and you're going to listen to it every single time.
As much of a departure.
Yeah. I mean, it's become like a staple in the Madonna canon now.
That's fantastic. And as much of the album is kind of a departure, as you were saying, from some of her other stuff, this song not as much, especially the video, like, because you sent me some of the videos to watch, so I watched it this morning. And the video is all black and white and silver and all of the color schemes that you saw in Truth or Dare.
Yeah.
And the sex book.
Yeah.
She's presenting like S&M themes and stuff in there, and it's all very like latex and all this kind of like pleather, and it's all very, very in your face. And it's clearly saying like, yeah, I'm still doing that. That's still me.
Right.
I can progress as an artist and as a person, but like, by the way, I'm not the one with the problem. You guys are all hung up on some fucking bullshit from your childhood.
That's right. Yeah.
Cool song.
So for that reason, I think that it's the most important song on the album. And I think it's the song on the album that has actually, like, it's the one song that sort of has stood the test of time and lasted. And that might just be because she plays it so often in her live shows. When I think about it, it is perhaps one of the most like Madonna, like if you have to have a Madonna statement song that's like, if aliens came down and said, what's Madonna about? Like, what's her shtick? You could say, this is what Madonna's about. Lyrically, this is what Madonna's about. And, you know, I'm not sorry, I'm not your bitch. Don't hang your shit on me. Like, that's her, right?
Yeah.
However, from a musical standpoint, it's almost sung more like, it's almost rapped in a way. I mean, singing, but it's almost a rap. It's like the melody doesn't really go to a lot of places. I think the most melodic, beautiful song on the album is Take a Bow, which was the album closer and was a song very much in the Babyface produced it. It was very much of that time period, the Toni Braxton sort of Mariah, Babyface kind of production. Babyface is actually on, well, at the time it was like he was backup vocals, but nowadays they would say Madonna featuring Babyface because it's basically a duet. I mean, he's just constantly in the song, but it's the most melodic song. It is lush and beautiful, and she really sings beautifully in that song.
Take a bow, the night is over, this masquerade is getting older, lights are low, the curtains down, there's no one here, say your lines, but do you feel them? Do you mean what you say when there's no one around? Watching you, watching me. One lonely star. I've always been in love with you. I guess you've always known it's true. Why, oh why, the show is over, say goodbye.
And it also tells a beautiful story about an actor.
Warren Beatty, perhaps?
Perhaps, yeah, an actor, and they're delivering their lines, but that's all it is a line, and that they're doing the same thing in the relationship, and then the show is over, say goodbye, so she's leaving. Now, interestingly, in the video, she made it about a matador.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful video, too. So I think the reason I sent you all that homework, all the videos, was this was that period of MTV where record companies were putting a lot of money into music videos. And this album in particular had 4 really expensive, really glossy, really creative, artistic music videos that all each have a statement. And you mentioned the video for Human Nature. The video for Take a Bow is beautiful. I mean, she went to Spain, I think, to make it.
It is lovely. It's very well shot, very cinematic. Yeah. And for me, I had to pick a favorite song on this album, and I also chose Take a Bow.
I've always been in love with you. I guess you've always known it's true. You took my love for granted. Why, oh why, the show is over, say goodbye.
The word lush. I think that's a good way to describe the song. Also, all right, so I'm not so sure about her personal life at this time exactly, but to me, the album in a lot of ways feels like a breakup album. And like it is wrestling with someone that she misses and things didn't work out, and she kind of regrets that. And then also like, fuck you, like you got these issues, I don't want anything to do with you anymore, I'm better off without you. There's all this kind of like conflicting stuff, which maybe that's just R&B songwriting and she's just like coming up with whatever feels right. Or it's a really good indicator of how when you go through a breakup, you don't have one specific emotion. You can be enraged and pissed off at that person one moment and regretful and melancholy the next. And Take a Bow, I think, yeah, it feels really personal. Again, I don't know that it's about Warren Beatty, but that she's literally talking about seeing an actor on screen and loving them from afar and all this stuff. It really kind of seemed like it was that. Only maybe not necessarily him. There's some other, celebrities that she got involved with in her time.
Yeah.
It's just a beautiful song. It really is. And I remembered it as a single, but I never really appreciated it. It never really stuck out to me back in the day. but listen to it recently. It's the one that gets stuck in my head. It's the one that kind of like, well, it's the last song on the album, but still, it's the one that sticks with me the most after the album's done.
Well, it's a beautiful melody.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, Take a Bow, this just shows how big R&B was as a genre in that time period. Take a Bow is the longest running #1 Madonna single of her entire career. It was #1 longer, I think, for 7 weeks. It was longer at #1 than Like a Virgin or Vogue.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it stayed at #1. It was just one of those songs that just really, it's pleasant to listen to. Unlike Human Nature, which is abrasive and in your face and basically telling you to fuck off, Take a Bow is very soft and
yeah. Human Nature is something that you might like work out to or something. Whereas Take a Bow is something you're gonna like, I don't know, dance with your dad at your wedding to or something. You know, it's very different kind of vibes. But that's one of the things I like about the album is that it all feels distinctly Madonna, even as I know that there's different songwriters brought in, different genres that she's playing with here. Yeah. It all very much demonstrates the power and importance of collaboration, not finding 14 fucking songwriters for one song.
Yeah.
In that kind of pop sensibility. I hate that shit. But being collaborative and finding new people to experiment with to push your boundaries as an artist, you can get some really fantastic results here. And Take a Bow both feels like classic Madonna and like very much the R&B style of that era.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the producers that she worked with met her where she was. She said, I have this vision, and they helped to sort of like make that become a reality rather than her sort of fitting into their mold.
Yeah. So you've got a lot of love for this album, Greg.
I do.
What about your least favorite song?
I honestly don't know that I have a least favorite song. I pretty much like every song on this album. This is one of her albums that I can listen to front to back. I like the fact that every song is so different. Okay, so if I was gonna say one criticism perhaps that I have, I guess my least favorite song would be Don't Stop.
Get up on the dance floor, everything is grooving. Get up on the dance floor, got to see you moving. Let the music shake you, let the rhythm take you. Feel it in your body, sing la-di-da-di. Don't stop doing what you're doing, baby. Don't stop, keep moving, keep grooving.
Okay, so I've never listened to the album before. That was the only one that I was tempted to skip.
Yeah.
Every time I hear it, I'm like, don't stop thinking about tomorrow. Don't. You know, the cadence of it is similar, and it's fine. It's a good pop song, but it didn't grab me the way the rest of the album did.
Yeah, it's very much though, the reason that I'm hesitant to say that it's my least favorite or that
I get it. You love the album, so it's not like you don't like the song.
I do. And every Madonna album has a song that's sort of like a call to the dance floor, like everybody come on out and dance.
Yeah.
That song does. The problem is that the song itself isn't that danceable, right? It's not like Get Into the Groove where she's telling you to come out and dance with her and you can really dance to the song.
Oh yeah, that's a finger crook on the dance floor kind of song, like come on out. Yeah, Don't Stop feels a little bit more.
Yeah, you kind of like just vibe in your car and drive down the road to it. That's the kind of song. The song is about get on the dance floor. I'd love to see you boogie, let the DJ shake you. But it's not like really a dance song. But I get what she was going for. I mean, lyrically. So that's probably my least favorite. I love the first single, Secret. I think that's beautiful and also a beautiful video as well.
I like that video. Very, very sepia tone, very classy.
Yeah.
And that's one of the few songs, like I said, I remember Take a Bow, but I remember Secret as a single as well, being like, that was probably the biggest single from the album from what I could gather as a non-fan.
Yeah, between that and Take a Bow, we're both pretty big. And the song is about loving yourself before you can really like be the best version of yourself. You have to really like embrace who you are. And I think
major theme of the album, right?
Yeah. In fact, that's a similar theme in I'd Rather Be Your Lover, which is maybe the third track.
I think so.
That Michelle Indeggio-Cello does the little rap part in the middle.
Is that her?
Yeah. Michelle Indeggio-Cello, also, I was tying that to Secret. That also talks about happiness, lies in your own hand. So Michelle Indeggio-Cello had been signed to Madonna's label. Madonna got her own label called Maverick Records in '92.
Yeah.
She signed Alanis Morissette, Candlebox, if you remember Candlebox.
Yeah, she signed like some punk bands and like some hip hop rock bands, like some of the earliest like rap rock bands. Like she was actually that label did some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, she wanted to get Hole, but Courtney Love wouldn't go for it. So
Too bad. They seem like they would have been a good team.
I know. Courtney I went with Geffen, which I guess is where Kurt was, so I guess that's what.
Yeah.
But anyway, Michelle Ndegeocello was on that album. She had a song that was popular called "If That's Your Boyfriend, Then He Wasn't Last Night." That was.
Oh, I remember that one.
Yeah. And so she did the rap, but originally Tupac Shakur was supposed to do the rap. And there is a version, I sent it to you this morning, there's a version of the song that Tupac does do the rap. And it's great.
It was better. It was better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was better.
Yeah. And I don't know why. I mean, they were dating at the time that she was recording this album. Somebody had access to letters and they were auctioning them off, letters that he had written while in jail to Madonna that effectively said something like, our positions are so different. You were this really famous white sex symbol pop star, and I was a black man rapper, and I think what you represented, I would, how does he say it? I sent it to you. Something like, you dating me would elevate you.
It would help her career. Right. She'd come off as edgy.
Right. Exactly. Whereas if me dating you would make me look like a sellout, basically. Like I'm dating somebody rich and it's like I'm social climbing or whatever.
And it's sad that they have to make that kind of calculation, you know?
Yeah, because I think that actually they probably were pretty good for each other.
Sounds like it.
When did he die? 96?
He died like a year or so after that letter, but it sounds like they remained friends up until his death, which
Yeah.
I think that if you can stay friends with an ex, that usually is a pretty good indicator there was something positive there, you know?
Yeah, and I don't think that the reason that he is not featured on the song has anything to do with the breakup, because the album was recorded early in 94, so I don't think that...
Maybe a rights thing or something?
I think it was probably a rights thing, but his rap is really good, so, you know, it's on YouTube. I mean, you can just pull up Madonna featuring Tupac.
And you'll find it. It's worth checking out. It's good.
Very good, yeah.
That's right. I'd rather be your lover. Are you surprised?
Don't trip of what they lips say. Even when the media is getting greedier, you make their hips sway. Creeping with the blonde ambition. I thought you peeping and I ain't sleeping. Got you freaking through the whole weekend. Frankly speaking, is a passion or just the heat? Got you trying to get me all up in your satin sheets. What would they say? A blonde and a thug brother. Way you getting paid? Wish we was lovers.
What about your underrated song in this album? Do you have one that you could choose as the most underrated?
Well, I thought about this a lot too. And what I kept coming back to is I think this as an album, the whole album is very much underrated in the Madonna canon. I think that a lot of people, when they think of Madonna albums, they think of Like a Virgin or Like a Prayer or True Blue, Ray of Light or Confessions on a Dance Floor. I think that if you were to tell people, name 5 Madonna albums, people that are just casual Madonna fans, I don't think they would ever name Bedtime Stories. I don't think it would ever come up because it came in kind of like as such a soft, it's a very soft, pillowy kind of album, right? And it doesn't feel like, it wasn't a huge statement. Erotica had come out, and you were like banged over the head with Erotica. And then Ray of Light came out, and it was this moment of like electronic music, and the 90s were about to end. But Bedtime Stories, I think, gets forgotten. So I think as an album, it's underrated. But if I were going to choose one song as being underrated, I would probably say the title track, Bedtime Story.
Today is the last day that I'm using words. They've gone out, lost their meaning, don't function anymore. Let's get unconscious, honey. Let's get unconscious, honey.
Really did point forward to the direction Madonna was going to end up going. By the late 90s, she was not going to be doing R&B music. She was going to be doing dance and electronic and very sort of Euro kind of sounds.
Yeah.
And even beyond that, by the time, you know, when she did Hung Up and all these other songs, it just sort of pointed the way. And it was just sort of a tiny little glimpse into that. She did a performance of it. One thing that also was big at this time, just in general in music, were remixes. There were a lot of really good remixes of all of these songs, especially Secret and Bedtime Story. I think Bedtime Bedtime Story, there was one called Junior Vasquez was a remixer that she worked with at the time. And he had a version called Junior's Wet Dream Mix. It was really good. And she performed a remix version of this at the Brit Awards in 95. And it was great. I mean, she's in like a long blonde wig and they have a fan going and it's like blowing her hair all around and it's really danceable. Interestingly, this was a big hit. Bedtime Story was a big hit in Europe, but not in the United States. Whereas Take a Bow was a big hit in the United States and not in Europe.
Funny.
It's strange, the different styles, you know.
Yeah. And Bedtime Story, one of the most expensive music videos of all time, directed by Mark Romanek.
Yeah.
You sent me the video and I watched it this morning, but I'd watched it maybe a year ago because I'm one of my other podcasts, Cinema 9, where we talk movies. We did the movie The Cell. And the movie The Cell, the director of that movie, Tarsem Singh, steals a whole bunch of shit from Mark Romanek music videos, particularly Nine Inch Nails' Closer and Bedtime Story. There's a lot of stuff like lifted. Well, the video for Bedtime Story, interestingly enough, is borrowing from Frida Kahlo and a bunch of other like woman artists. So it's fraught with all kinds of references in and of itself. So it's like, on one hand, is Tarsem stealing or is it just homage? But there's a lot of stuff. It's like, holy shit, dude. Like, you watch this video a whole bunch. But also, the song was written by Bjork. You said you have a Bjork story to get into? I'm curious.
So you just recently did an episode, I think it was 3 or 4 episodes ago, about
on
her
Debut,
which is a great album.
Yeah.
Homogenic or homogenic, I never know how to say it, is probably
Me neither.
Bjork album. Yeah.
That's my favorite Bjork album, too. It's so good.
Yeah. But she had 3 Bam 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 albums, Debut, Post, and Homogenic in the 90s that were just brilliant. And Madonna, so before I get to my personal Bjork, well, Björk is how she, apparently.
Bjork is, yep, correct. Yeah, we're Americans, so it's fine.
Yeah. Madonna really liked her first album, which had like Human Behavior and Venus is a Boy and Big Time Sensuality. So Madonna really liked her album, and she worked with a producer named Nellie Hooper, Bjork. Nellie Hooper had worked with Sinead on I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got, which was Nothing Compares to You and all that stuff. Nellie Hooper, he worked with Massive Attack. So Madonna was also looking at that. And remember, Madonna was looking at lots of producers for Bedtime Stories, the album, and Nellie Hooper was one that she was like sort of, like he was another focus of hers. And Bjork said in a later interview that she wrote Bedtime Story kind of as a favor to Nellie Hooper. She said, no offense to Madonna, but my friend, meaning Nellie, asked me to write a song for Madonna. So as like a gift to him, I wrote this song, which later she recorded her own version of it called Sweet Intuition. It sounds nothing like it. I mean, it's a completely different song, but it has lyrically, there's similarities. And the reason that she wrote the Let's Get Unconscious, Honey, was sort of like she felt that Madonna never was able to just like relax and let go and just be free. And that was her idea of like, if she could just sing, like, let's just like be unconscious. That's the only time that Madonna could be like free. I think I'm getting that story right. It sounds very much like a Bjork kind of song.
It does. Yeah, from that era.
Weird that it's on the same album as like Human Nature and Secret and Take a Bow. It's like just a strange, the juxtaposition. But Bjork, I was in Manhattan. This had to be probably in the late 90s. And I was walking just in Manhattan. It was just midday. And I walked past this woman who was Bjork, but I didn't place it. In my mind, I recognized this woman that I was walking past. And I smiled at her because I thought, oh, I know her from somewhere. I think I probably even said to my brother, I was like, I know that woman. And I thought, well, I better smile because I don't know where I know her from. I'll just smile. So I smiled and our shoulders like brushed against each other. I can't remember if she smiled back because I was really in my head like,
who is this?
Her from? Like, that face is so familiar. And I remember I got to the very end of the block and it just like washed over me. I was like, oh, and I stopped and I turned around and I was like, oh my God, that was Bjork.
Wow.
And my brother's like, you don't know Bjork. And I was like, no, but I mean, like, I knew her face.
Right.
I turned around and I could see her at the other end of the block, like 1 block away. But at that point, I knew that I was not going to be that like totally insane fan that runs down the block. It was like, Bjork.
Part of you wanted to, right?
Yeah, can you sign my arm so I can tattoo it? No, I mean, but yeah, isn't that interesting? So I've never
seen super cool
live, but I've certainly brushed right past her on the street and smiled at her,
cool.
not realizing it was her. So yeah,
as far as I'm concerned in that story, she smiled back.
That's right, she did. But that was cool. But back to Madonna. So she did Bedtime Story and this amazing video that went along with it. And Madonna, you're right. Madonna is very into visual art. She collects a lot of really expensive artwork. Her favorite is Frida Kahlo. And so she incorporated a lot of this stuff into that video. And people over the years have often talked about Madonna and they use cultural appropriation. They sort of tie that to her. And I really think that with Madonna, I understand why people say that because she makes money off of it. And so it seems like if somebody takes influences and then kind of like packages it up and sells it as their own thing, then that's cultural appropriation.
That's also white rock and roll and white
It's also-
music for the most of the 20th century.
Exactly. That's what exactly. I mean, yeah.
On the other hand, the cornrows that she was rocking in the Human Nature video, they did give me pause. I was like,
True.
oh, she's got cornrows.
True. But I think in her mind, and again, it really is a lot about intention. I don't believe that Madonna sees it as, I think she sees it as influence. I know,
Yeah, I'm sure.
I think she thinks I love what I'm seeing here. I want to incorporate that into my artwork. And you have to, there will be some people who in the queer community that will disagree about this statement I'm going to make, but it's true. There are a lot of straight people. There are a lot of gay people for that matter that would not know what voguing is if it were not for Madonna. They wouldn't know.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I would have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, she did take an underground dance form and elevate it into a spotlight in 1990. Now, of course, it, was not something that necessarily lasted. Like when the song eventually.
Yeah, it was a fad.
Yeah. But people are still voguing to this day. And now people know voguing as, I mean, it's taken on a whole new like form in the drag community, like where it originated. But I don't think Madonna thought of it as appropriation. I mean, if she was appropriating, to me, I think what actually answers that question is if Madonna just wanted to appropriate, she would have just taken the dance form and incorporated it and said, look what I'm doing, I'm voguing. But she didn't. She hired dancers from the House of Extravaganza, put them in the video, took them on tour. She actually gave work to people who originated this form, so.
Yeah, is it appropriation if she's championing the people that influence her, right? Like she clearly has done throughout her career, it seems to me.
Actually, interestingly, the cornrows in Human Nature, believe it or not, for those who haven't seen that video, her hair looks dark, jet black. She's in a jet black, like leather outfit. Her hair looks jet black. In fact, it was actually blonde, but she braided leather into her hair, into the cornrow. So black leather is braided into the blonde hair, so it looks black.
Yeah,
and it's
interesting.
Really an interesting look. So they braided the leather all the way to the back, like all the way down.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that the cornrow look was...
Now it's a little like
questionable. Yeah.
Yeah, questionable.
It was 1994, so yeah.
So getting back to the music, there is one more song I wanted to talk about, which I'm going to break precedent on my 93rd episode or something. I'm going to do something I've never done before with an album that I've never listened to. I usually don't give an underrated track because I don't feel like I have a leg to stand on in that argument because I didn't grow up listening to it,
Right.
But I think that since my favorite song on the album was a single, there's a second song I wanted to highlight that I really struggled between my two favorite songs. So I'm going to call it my underrated track because it wasn't a single. The song that I think is the best song on the album, even though I picked Take a Bow as my favorite because it's so catchy and musically like familiar almost. I think in a lot of ways the best song on the album for me is actually Love Tried to Welcome Me. Song is beautiful. It's like a rumba, and lyrically, just the content of that, just it resonates with me so hard. Like this push and pull that we all have when we want love and we try to achieve it and try to do the right thing, but at the same time, there's a struggle within ourselves where it's like you got to like conquer that part too. And the idea that love tried to welcome me, love tried to break me, Man, it's a fucking great song.
Yeah. Love Tried to Welcome Me is a very unusual, it's very cinematic.
Yeah.
It's almost like its own thing on the album. I believe, and I'm going to have to consult while I'm talking about this.
Consult the Madonna.
Love Tried to Welcome Me it really is a totally unique, very intimate, very vulnerable song.
Yeah, very vulnerable.
And I believe she wrote it after she had, hold on a second. Yes, I'm right. Okay, so its introspective lyrics foreshadow the direction she'd be. Again, got to give credit to Matthew Redmond who wrote this. Introspective lyrics foreshadowed the direction she'd be going in with Ray of Light a few years later. Madonna has said that the song was inspired by a pole dancer who looked sad. So it was like she had seen a pole dancer and she kind of came up with this story of like, I guess she took that idea of this person sort of, made it her own story around that. And I think it actually is also a very Madonna lyric. I think this whole Love Tried to Welcome Me, but my soul drew back, because she's of lust and sin. It's a very cinematic song. Instead of spring, it's always winter.
Mm-hmm. And to speculate here, I can imagine with lyrics this vulnerable, it'd also be pretty easy to say, yeah, I based this on a pole dancer that I saw once who looked sad.
True.
You know what I mean? Like, it'd be easier to do that in a way.
Yeah.
This is some really self-reflective lyrics and assessment.
Yeah.
That I have a hard time imagining that there isn't at least some truth to it.
I'm sure there's a lot. I think the other song that doesn't necessarily sound like this, but the other song that's quite vulnerable on this album is Inside of Me. Her mother, and it's sung through a voice of a little girl. Like the way she sings it sounds very young. And
it's about her mother?
Yeah, it's about her mom.
Oh.
Her mom died of cancer when she was 6. She said she spent her whole life searching for that kind of love.
That's so sad. I took that one as kind of a breakup song too, but now it makes a lot more sense. That's a lot sadder.
Yeah, so there's that song, and then Love Tried to Welcome Me, which I do think is about I think in terms of, here she is like the most famous, certainly in 1994, she was, besides maybe like I mentioned Princess Diana, Madonna was like the most famous, woman in the world. And how can you find someone that you can trust isn't just trying to like work you or get something and love you like for you. And I think Love Tried to Welcome Me is sort of like that, like you said, the push and pull, like wanting to let somebody in, but then pushing back and saying, no, I'm not going to do that. And
kind of a heartbreaker. So you've seen her live, I'm assuming?
Probably 15, 16 times. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You send me pictures often when you go to live shows, so I know you probably saw her real up close because you like to be front and center, don't you?
I have a good Madonna story. I have so many stories. I have a good Madonna story. Her manager is a guy named Guy O'Siri, and in 2012, she had an area that she called the Golden Triangle, and it was right in front of the stage. Obviously, I don't use Twitter anymore, but back at the time I had a Twitter at the time, and he tweeted out something like, let me know why you should, and I think I had seats, I don't know, somewhere in like the main bowl area of the arena, but let me know why I should select you to come down into the Golden Triangle. And I sent him a message just basically saying what I said earlier. Like, I grew up in Maryland in this small town, and I had no role models saying it's okay to be gay. And not only is it okay to be gay, but you can like embrace that, but also you can have a fuck you attitude about it. Like, yeah, I'm gay, and what, right? Like, yeah, that's cool because, and look what I can do with that. I can achieve greatness even, because I'm gay, whatever, right?
Yeah.
I told him this whole story, and I got a tweet at the time back saying, "Guy Siri has selected you for the Golden Triangle. Please be at the
So cool.
please be at the box office to get your wristband." And then I met him, and I got my picture taken with him. I met her guitarist. I got my picture taken with him, and I stood right up against, smushed up against the thing, and yeah, saw her. So I have seen a lot of Madonna. Yeah, a lot.
That's awesome. She seems to have a big role in your life, so I'm glad you got to see her
Yeah.
many times and get real up close and personal.
Yeah, one day we'll talk all about all of the concerts that I've been to, but I go to as many concerts as I can. I always have, because, well, I've always enjoyed going to concerts in general, but now that people have started passing away, I'm able to go, oh, I'm so glad I got to see them. Like, I saw Tina Turner. We're getting a little off Madonna here, but I saw
Lucky man.
I saw David Bowie. I saw Michael Jackson. I saw Donna Summer. I saw George Michael. Right. So I saw Prince twice. So I've seen like all these people that like a lot of other people are like, oh, I wish I'd gotten a chance. But I just like make it, I just say, I'm going to that show.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if I'm sitting way up, I'm still going. And so, but Madonna, yeah, she just has been just a huge part of my life. And I still to this day, she really does. Like, she did a tour in 2023. Was it 2023? The Celebration tour, yeah. And she really paid homage to gay ballroom culture. The MC was Bob the Drag Queen, who was one of RuPaul's Drag Race winners. She did a whole ballroom thing on the stage.
Cool.
Oh, and more importantly than that, she sang Live to Tell, which is one of her brilliant songs from 1986 from True Blue. And Live to Tell, she worked with the AIDS Quilt Memorial to of all images of people who had died of AIDS and projected them on all these screens that were like moving around, and
Oh, wow.
all of these people that had died of AIDS. And there were so many images. It started with people in her, like, it started with her best friend who died in 86, whose medical care she paid for when he was in St. Vincent's Hospital. And then her ballet teacher who had died. And then Keith Haring, who she was friends with, and all these people. And then eventually there's so many thumbnails. They're just teeny, teeny, tiny, but all these people that had died. And so the AIDS Quilts did like she worked with them in partnership to kind of do this homage to people who had passed. And, the fact that Madonna's been a performer for 40 years, she doesn't have to do these things. It just clearly means something to her to do it. And I respect that. I think that a lot of people might, like nowadays, okay, so I like Lady Gaga. People are going to listen to this, and little monsters, if they listen to this, will come for me. But when she wrote Born This Way, she said, I'm going to write a gay anthem. But I don't believe, personally, as a mid-40-something gay man, I don't believe that the gay anthems that I know and love were written by that artist saying with that intention, like, I want to write a gay anthem. Gay people decide, this is ours. We embrace this song. We take this and we lift it up and it becomes an anthem for us.
That makes sense.
Queer people decide that it's an anthem for them, not the artist writing it. That seems cheap. And it seems
A little contrived.
pandering. Yeah, exactly. Of course, who am I? Because it was a big hit. And what do I know? Madonna said it was a reductive form of express yourself because it sounds the same, but I digress. But in fact, Madonna did a version of that song. She sang Express Yourself and then sang part of Born This Way and then went back into Express Yourself. It was really something.
Like a medley.
A medley. But I think that Madonna was doing it at a time when not a lot of artists were supportive of the gay community, and she still is.
Not enough are still, right?
Yeah.
So that's awesome that she still is.
And Bedtime Stories, I think it's an underrated album in her discography. I think that people should go back and listen to it. I think the other reason why, and I will say the other reason why I think it's not remembered is after this period in the 90s, she spent the rest of the 90s, well, until 98. So after this album finished, she did in 95, she did like a greatest hits ballads, her greatest ballads album. So it was all slower songs. And then she did Evita, which took a couple years. So she became kind of like, it took her out of like the top of the charts pop star kind of thing until Ray of Light came out in 98. So I think people remember the beginning of the decade, which was Truth or Dare and Erotica and the Sex Book and all that. And then they remember the end, which was Ray of Light. But this album gets lost in the middle there. And because it wasn't a huge statement album, it did have statements like Human Nature or Love Tried to Welcome Me is a statement by itself, just about vulnerability. And yeah, it's a great one. It's a great album.
I'm glad to get to talk about it with you.
Yeah.
It gave me a whole new appreciation for the album, obviously, but for Madonna as well. And I got to know you a little bit better and what your history,
Yeah.
the connections that this has for you.
Yeah.
I end every episode with something of a trivia kind of round or like that kind of stuff. So I kind of struggled what to do with this one. And I I was like, well, I shouldn't do a trivia based on like the men that she's dated. That seems reductive, or to use a word that you just used. But then you sent me a clip about her dating Tupac, and I'm like, all right, well, fuck it. I got some trivia for you. I'm going to name a bunch of names. You tell me if they dated Madonna or if they did not date Madonna.
Okay.
All right, you game? You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Number 1, we got Dennis Rodman.
Yes. She wanted to have his baby, actually.
Yeah, supposedly he called her like one of the best relationships he ever had.
Yeah.
So, All right. Jean-Michel Basquiat, the artist.
Yes. She did date him.
Yes.
Photos
She
of
did
him.
date him.
Yeah.
That is correct. Very good. Joe Strummer of The Clash.
No.
She did not date Joe Strummer. Mike Tyson.
She did not date Mike Tyson, but he did guest on one of her albums called Rebel Heart, which is another good album.
Mike Tyson guested on one of her albums?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's great. But you are correct. He did not date her.
Opening, he's like, I'm the greatest something you'll ever see. The song's called Iconic, and
Yeah.
he just does this very opening thing. I'm the
Well, I
greatest.
didn't think he sang.
It's this tiny little moment, but it's funny because he's just like, no one's ever going to hold me down, but it's a high. He's like, no one's going to, I don't know.
How about Vanilla Ice?
He was in her sex book, which is questionable, but no, from what I understand, not dated, but flirty and made the book.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you that point. I read some different things.
Yeah.
He claims that she tried to marry him, but
Well, he would say that because he had one hit.
yeah. So they were involved, but maybe not straight up dated. Supposedly they dated for 8 months, according to People. The same article that you sent me, actually, they dated for 8 months.
I mean, there are conflicting reports about it. I don't think she's ever necessarily. I don't know. I don't believe it.
Yeah, I got you. We don't want to believe it. How about John F. Kennedy Jr.?
I believe it. I believe she dated him.
Yeah, that one's kind of a little murky, right? But it sounds like they had some sort of fling at least. Something was going on there.
Yeah, but I think he was more into Daryl Hannah, and I think, something.
Okay.
I think she didn't get along with Jackie or something.
Yeah, something to do with the family. I did kind of pick up on that. It had something to do with the family.
Can you believe I know all the answers to all this shit?
I'm so far impressed. How about Michael Jackson?
I mean, they went on a couple dates. Apparently they kissed, but she said, this is sad actually, after he died, she did say, now of course, she said that they were watching a movie on the couch and she just held his hand and it seemed like he just really needed a friend.
That is sad.
That is sad. They understood each other because they were so famous.
Yeah, it sounds like that's what it was.
Yeah. But they did go to the Oscars together in 91.
Yeah, that led to a lot of speculation, apparently, right?
Madonna loves to shock. She loves to shock, too. And I think she knew that would get a lot of headlines going with him. He was so famous at the time. But no, I don't think it was actually dating.
Yeah. How about Kiefer Sutherland?
Not that I've ever heard, but that doesn't mean
That is correct.
Yeah.
I would believe it, but there's no record of it.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we have the magician David Blaine.
Huh. There is something about David Blaine that I remember reading in one of the books. I'm going to say no, but maybe a flirtation.
Okay, so you finally got one wrong.
Okay.
They reportedly, wrong-ish. It sounds like there could have been a flirtation. I don't know. Reportedly, according to the website sheknows.com, they dated for a few weeks or so in 1998.
Let's
so it was a brief thing.
Let's
consult the Madonna.
Media Madonna, yeah.
I'm sure Blaine is in the glossary.
I know. I'm trying to.
I will reserve the point until you've consulted the Oracle.
I do not see David Blaine in here.
If it's not in the Madonna, maybe you're right. Maybe it was more of a flirtation than an actual relationship. I'm going to give you the point. Fuck it. I want to say that you got 9 out of 9 right, so let's just say. Because you seem I mean, I'm going to believe you and the Madonna over myself and sheknows.com. She might not know.com.
I mean, I thought you were going to ask me Sandra Bernhard or Ingrid Pisaris, who are the two women that she's been linked to.
So I didn't know that she had a history with Sandra Bernhard. The other woman's name, she's just not famous, so I didn't want to.
Right.
It seemed like it'd be obvious if I threw out a name that like nobody knew.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She dated her bodyguard too, and I didn't want to put him out either.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think with Sandra, it was more they were just friends. Ingrid, I'm not sure, because Ingrid was in her life for a very long time, and part of me kind of thinks, well, maybe.
Yeah, it sounds like there was something going on there.
There have been other women who have said that they had relationships with her. So I think there may be some truth to the bisexuality stuff. I think Madonna's just a sexual person, and I think that if the shoe fits at the time, try it on.
She's entitled to do whatever the fuck she wants.
That's right.
Just like the rest of us, but Madonna maybe a little extra.
Yeah.
Greg, thank you so much for coming back on the show. I'm really glad to get you on the show and talking about an artist and an album that's so, the artist in particular, important to American history, to world history, to gay history, but also to dig into an album that maybe doesn't get the attention that it deserves. So thanks for coming back on.
Thank you.
Coming back on for the first time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Something's coming over. Something's coming over. Something's coming over me. My baby's got a secret. My baby's got a secret. My baby's got a secret.
Yeah, so a big thanks to Greg again for coming on the show. Clearly his love for Madonna is huge. The dude is passionate about her and her music, and that's what the show is all about, you know? Getting people on here who are passionate about albums, passionate about artists and bands, and letting them go off. And I get to go off too. It's a lot of fun. So if you want to come on the show yourself, you are always welcome. All you got to do is email me at 9394podcast@gmail.com. Greg mentioned the song I'll Remember from the With Honor soundtrack.
Say goodbye to not knowing when the truth in my whole life began. Say goodbye to not knowing how to cry. You taught me that, and I'll remember the strength that you gave me. Now that I'm standing on my own, I'll remember the way that you saved me. I'll remember.
If you're trying to think of an album to do from 93, 94, and you're bummed that Bedtime Stories got taken, you could at least do a soundtrack that's got Madonna on it. And not just Madonna, there's a lot of good bands on this soundtrack. Belly, Kristen Hirsch, The Pretenders, Grantley Buffalo, The Cult, Duran Duran, Mudhoney. It's a good run. It's a good run of bands on this soundtrack. I wouldn't mind talking it over with somebody, or any other album from 1993 or 1994. Please rate and review the show. That's always appreciated, you know, on whatever service you use. Click follow or like or subscribe or whatever, 5 stars. It helps the show grow. And that is it. I thank you so much for your time. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. 9394, a music podcast with Travis Roy, is a labor of love. It is not and never will be monetized. Please don't sue.